Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny, and today we're going to discuss all of the books that I read in September. And in case you're wondering, 20. I read 20 books in September. That is definitely a lot for me. My goal is generally 10. So yeah, we were killing it. I did go on a short cruise with my friend Allie. We went on the Disney Wish out of Port Canaveral for 3 days down to the Bahamas. Yeah, so we had a great time. So there was a lot of airport reading, airplane reading, reading by the pool, reading on the beach, in the water, reading in the ocean. Did you know that you can read in the ocean? You can. You just drag your chair down there, plop her down, hunker down. And I recommend a Kindle for this because they're waterproof, not, the physical book. I tried that last year. It was okay. I just had to be very, very, very careful not to let my pages get soggy. And then, Anyway, Kindle. So here's a couple pictures from my cruise. Get the children out of the. Okay, so let's jump in and start talking about the books. So I'm gonna go in order of crappiest to least crappy. And by least crappy, I mean good. I quite like them. In fact, some of my ones, when you get up into the last 3 or 4, it was kind of hard for me to say one was better than the other. They're all very different. So we will talk about that when we get there. All right, so number 1, yes. Cheat sheet, people. A 1-star, Rebecca Yaros, The Last Letter. I can probably count on one hand the number of books that I have finished, or I've actually read the whole book, that I've rated 1 star. Usually if they're that bad, I just DNF them. But I made it all the way through this bad boy, and I regret it. Okay, I will start by saying this is an extremely popular book. It has a 4.5 out of 5 stars rating on Goodreads. So, what? Did we read the same book? So, this book feels to me like Rebecca Yaros wrote down a list of all of the tragedies that could possibly happen to, 18 different people, and crammed them all into this one woman's life, to the point where it was just utterly, okay, it was implausible and ridiculous. I did not have any feelings left by the end for any of these characters. So to tell you, one of the main characters in the book dies in the end. Spoiler alert, okay? I don't feel bad spoiling this. I'm not telling you who dies because it does matter. It's not necessarily who you think. But also, this book is so horrible, don't read it, okay? Don't read it. But one of the main characters dies, and I was like, cool. That's too bad. Why am I still reading this horrible book? Stupid. And it wasn't horrible like, oh my God, I'm devastated this character died. No, it was like, I don't even care that this person died. So you may be wondering, Rebecca Yaros, where have I heard that name? Have you guys heard of Fourth Wing? I have that up there on my shelf too. Fourth Wing. One of the most popular fantasy books to come out in the last couple of years. Arguably maybe the most popular, maybe, if you take the Sarah J. Maas equation out. My theory is one of 2 things. One, all of these people rating this book on Goodreads didn't even read it. And they were just like, Rebecca Yaros is my queen now. She can do no wrong. This book is probably gold also. No. Or 2, they didn't like it, but they loved Fourth Wing so much, they still didn't want to say anything bad. So anyway, that's one of my 2 theories, because otherwise, I don't know what book you guys read. It was terrible. Okay, number 2, also a book I did not care for, is One Cursed Rose by Rebecca Zanetti. So if you like a dark romance and you like a morally gray, that's what we're going to go with, morally gray, main male character, you may love this book. There was also a little bit of a weird fantasy magic crystals element into it. This book was not for me, okay? I found it very utterly implausible. I think it's part of a series. I am not going to be continuing with it. No, not for me. Okay, so these next ones, 3 through 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, are all part of a series. So I read another book by this author, Abigail Owens, that I'm going to talk about later on in this vlog. And that book I loved. So this is kind of the fourth wing situation. I loved this other book, so I went and read her other books thinking, oh, wow, I found this new author that I really like. I'm going to go read these other books. These books are fine. These are in that fantasy, romantasy vibe. They're basically dragon smut, which is fine. I don't know that it's necessarily for me. So this follows a series of dragon shifter firefighters. So it's human men, but they're dragons. So they can shift back and forth. And they're all out there just fighting fires, many of which have been started by other dragons, and they're kind of just trying to keep their whole like dragon existence secret. They're trying to find their mate. Like this is their main goal in life, is to find your mate. And all of the mates are human women, but they can't just be any human woman. It's got to be a human woman who can, essentially survive mating a dragon. It's ridiculous to talk about this. So they're not bad. They got pretty repetitive. There's, I think, 11 books in this series. I got through 4 of them and was like, I gotta take a break. Sometime I'll go back to them. All right, next up, The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this is book 3 of the Inheritance games. I don't know how many books there are, 4, 5 at this point. So this was book 3. I really liked book 1. Okay, so this is about a 16-year-old girl who, book 1, overnight inherits basically a Warren Buffett, Bill Gates level of fortune, $46 billion. This man dies, leaves her his entire fortune. She has no idea how or who or why. She was living in her car, and this man leaves her 40-something billion dollars. But there were a lot of contingencies and caveats, and she had to solve all these riddles and puzzles, and the first book was really interesting. And then I think it just got more and more implausible as time went on. Like, this man has died, and he just continued. They keep finding all these puzzles. Anyway, the first book was good. I don't know that the rest of them are worth reading. The problem is, after you read the first one, you feel like you have to at least read the second one, because you still don't know after the first one why he left her all of the money. So you have to keep reading. The next one, The Prisoner by B.A. Paris. So this was kind of mystery thriller. I really liked this. This is the first book I read by this author. So our main character is, she's a young woman. I think she's in her late teens. Her parents die. She's left completely penniless and alone in the world. She moves to London. The book was set in the UK. She didn't come from the United States to London. She came from, I don't know, some rural town to London, and she has nothing. And she meets these, I'm going to say older women. They're not old women, but they were older than her, probably in their 30s, like adult professional business women who kind of adopt her. They take her in, they give her shelter, they give her a job, housekeeper, help her with her education, and they just kind of adopt her. And she kind of builds this weird little family unit. Fast forward a few years, and she meets this really wealthy man through this group of women who offers her marriage. It's strictly intended to be a business contract. She's absolutely marrying him for money. But it's not like, oh, hey, big boy, handsome. And, she's secretly marrying it. No, it's clearly a business transaction. She's just trying to get his money. Well, he's offered to pay her, basically. But the problem is, once she marries him, she finds many, many not very nice things out about him. And his intentions are not quite what she thought. So I thought that one's pretty good. Read it. Next up, 9, A Land of Never After by R.L. Davennor. This is a Peter Pan retelling, but it's horror. So I saw this on TikTok. I saw the ad for the book, I should say, and they made it look really fantastical, but it's horror. And if I had realized that it was horror, and this is on me, clearly didn't read a description well. If I'd realized it was horror, I would not have picked this book up. I don't care for horror because I do not like gore. I love a mystery. I love thriller. I do not like gore. And this book definitely had gore in it. That being said, it was pretty short. It was a quick read. I did read it while I was on vacation because I thought, oh, this cute, fantastical Peter Pan book. I'll read that while I'm on the beach. Not what I thought I was reading, but it was good. It wasn't anything amazing, but you know, it was cute. For horror, cute, maybe not the right word. Next up, we're just gonna move on. Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood. So this is, if you've read any Ali Hazelwood books, this is romance. One of the things that sets Ali Hazelwood books apart is she tends to write female characters in particular, but all of her characters who are involved in academia or STEM fields in some way. And in this case, she's writing this younger woman, I think she's like 18, who is kind of a female Bobby Fischer. So she is a chess prodigy, but she hates chess. She hates it. She doesn't want anything to do with it. She had a bad fallout with her dad. She started playing chess with her dad, so she's kind of got this really negative connotation for her around chess. She doesn't want anything to do with it, but her friends kind of say, hey, please come with us to this chess competition. There's a prize at the end. We could win some money. You need money to help your family because they're struggling because of your dad being an asshat. So she goes, and of course, who is her first competitor but the reigning world champion of chess? Because of course he is who would be there at this random competition that anybody can enter, playing this girl who hasn't played competitive chess in years. So very plausible. But this book, it gives kind of the Queen's Gambit. You guys seen the Queen's Gambit on Netflix? If you haven't seen the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, go watch that. Anna Taylor-Joy is a dream. I love her so much. She's great. Show is awesome. A little difficult to watch at times because she also has a very challenging relationship with her family. I would actually probably suggest, if you want to watch a chess, or, you know, read/watch a chess drama, that you watch The Queen's Gambit instead of reading this book. But anyway, it wasn't bad. Next up, we have a whole slew of mediocre. A couple bad, a lot of mediocre, and then some really good ones. We're going to get to the good ones, guys. Hang in there with me. Okay, next up is The Burnout by Sophie Kinsella. I think I have read, maybe not, sorry, I have something in my eye. I'm look at it. I have makeup on. We went out to dinner for Brian's birthday. It never happens. So I read this. I've read almost everything that Sophie Kinsella has written. I don't think I've read everything, but I have been reading her books for the last 20 to 25 years. Long time I've been reading her stuff. I think the first book I ever read of hers was Confessions of a Shopaholic. If you haven't read the book, do you remember that movie? It had Isla Fisher in it. It was terrible. The movie was awful, but the book is funny. And I think I started reading them when I was in college age, so I resonated with that character more. I don't think I would find it as funny today, just because she kept writing Confessions of a Shopaholic books, and eventually they got annoying for me because, geez, get control of your spending, lady. But she never does. But anyway, squirrel. So this one, though, is about a young woman who she is completely burnt out from her job. Hence the burnout. It's that burnout. And so she takes a leave from her job and she goes to spend like a month on a beach in England. So this is not a Bahamas beach. Bear that in mind. This is a March in England beach. And while she's there, she meets this other man who is essentially there doing the exact same thing. He's completely burnt out from his job. And they are like the only two people on this beach because in addition to the fact that it's like March, so not warm weather, not summer beach weather, the resort that they've gone to is a resort that they both went to when they were children, and they loved it, and they have these wonderful memories there, and they learned to surf and great family time. But now the resort has kind of fallen into disrepair. It's definitely gone very, very downhill. The town is struggling. So while they're there, not only are they trying to find their way back from this horrible burnout situation, but also they decide they're going to try and save this resort in town. So I think that Sophie Kinsella has a really charming sense of humor. She writes really kind of like warm characters that you root for in the end. I would recommend all of Sophie Kinsella's books. I think my favorite of hers is called Can You Keep a Secret? They also turned that into a movie that was terrible. So just read the books. Okay, next up is the Rom-Commers by Katherine Center. I think this is the third book I've read by her, and I've liked them all. This follows Emma, and I realized when I was writing my notes out that 3 of my books have a main character named Emma. So this is one of them. So she is an aspiring rom-com writer, but aspiring rom-com screenplay writer specifically. She wants to write screenplays. And her mom has died. Her dad has a like serious physical illness that he requires full-time care. So she has basically put her whole life on hold to take care of her dad and also her younger sister. But now her friend, who is also her literary agent, has arranged for her to go to LA for 6 weeks to stay with this other writer. This writer is like, he's got Oscars, but he primarily writes like action movies. So he's trying to write a rom-com, and the screenplay is terrible. So she goes out there to help him with it. And he wants nothing to do with her. So it ends up being very, very, very sweet as well. It's funny, it's cute. And one of the things that I really like about Katherine Center is that in addition to being funny and cute, she writes characters with real problems. So that just, life has problems in it. And when I read some of these stories where it's just like, oh, he looked at me funny and I'm devastated now. Yeah, not interested in that. Okay, next up, Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. This is another author where I think I've read all of her books. This is romantasy. And I just really like how Maniscalco writes. I like her writing style. So this is an offshoot of a trilogy called Kingdom of the Wicked. So all of these follow a man who they're all princes of hell. Each one of them represents one of the deadly sins. So yeah, that's what this is. It's romantasy. I like it. I like her writing. I also really strongly recommend her Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I don't know if it's still on sale, but if you go to the Barnes & Noble Starbucks, that book has been on sale at the Starbucks for $5, and it's like some sort of special edition. But I like it. All right, next book. Okay, now we're starting to get into the ones where I'm like, yes, read these for sure. Is Nightbane by Alex Aster. So this is book 2 of a YA fantasy series called Light Lark. So yeah, I'm into this. Keep the books coming. I'm on the waiting list for I think it's Nightshade is the next one. And I'm just waiting for the book to come out. Come on. So this series takes place in a world that has been cursed, and the world is dying. So every so many years, the leaders get together because the only way to save this world, which they haven't been able to do yet, but it's continuing to die, the only way to save the world is for one of the leaders of one of the kingdoms within this world to die. But if the leader dies, the whole kingdom dies. So it's not just like we killed the one guy. You're killing an entire country, basically. So they kind of get together and have like a political Hunger Games type thing where every kingdom has to basically justify why they deserve to exist. So there's a lot of backstabbing and a lot of intrigue. Anyway, it's really good. I like this one. Number 15, Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. So this is book 2 and the conclusion of the Divine Rivals trilogy, or I'm sorry, duology. It's just 2 books. So Divine Rivals, it's a romantasy series, and it's kind of got a steampunk vibe. Like I just I'm picturing everything very steampunk, a lot of typewriters, very like 1800s kind of look to it. But it's set in a world where there is a war going on between two gods. Kind of picture Hades versus Persephone. So it is two gods who were married to each other who now are trying to kill each other. And all of the people in this town or in this city, in this world, are basically picking sides. Are you Hades or are you Persephone? Those are not the names of the gods, by the way, but it's pretty clearly Hades and Persephone. So our two main characters are columnists for a newspaper, and they're both competing for the same like promotion. So they kind of have this rivalry going on. But during the course of the war, they get separated, but they find that they're able to communicate through magical typewriters. All right, I know that sounds silly. Every time, like writing out my little notes, I was like, magical typewriters. That sounds goofy. But I'm telling you, it was actually a really good series. Read it. Okay, next up, 16. So this is where I'm going to tell you the next several books were all 5 stars for me. And it was really difficult for me to say I liked one better than the other because they're all super different. And I'm going to tell you why as I go. So number 16, thriller, mystery, The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. So this follows Emma. So this was my second Emma, main character of the month. So Emma is a professional artist. She paints, and every painting that she does, she hides within the painting somewhere 3 girls who disappeared from her summer camp when she was 13, 15 years ago. So since these girls disappeared, the camp has been closed. But now they've called her up and said, hey, we're reopening the camp and we would like you to come back, kind of not only as a like commemoration that you were here when this happened and we're trying to move past it, but we would like you to come back as the art instructor. And for reasons one can only imagine, she decides that that is what she is going to do. Not only does she decide to go back to the camp, but she requests to be in the cabin that she was in, that she shared with the 3 girls who disappeared. It becomes pretty clear that she has her own reasons for wanting to go back, and it's going to be up to you to see if you can figure out what those reasons are. It was very twisty. It was really good. I did not see the end coming. So the next book, this is historical fiction. So we've gone from mystery, thriller to historical fiction. Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. Oh, knife to the chest, guys. This one was the last book that I read in September, and it was just emotionally devastating. It was emotionally devastating. So this follows a young girl. She's 12. Her name is Real Boss, and she and her siblings, she has 4 younger siblings, 4 or 5 younger siblings, and they are what they call river kids. So they live in Tennessee. Her family is very, very poor. They're loving, but they are very, very poor. Her parents leave to they go to the hospital to have another baby. And while her parents are gone, she and her siblings are essentially kidnapped and forced to go to the Tennessee Children's Home orphanage. And I had read about the Tennessee Children's Home. So the Tennessee Children's Home was a real place, and it was headed up by Georgia Tan. She was a real person. She was a horrible person. I had read about her, though, or heard about her more in the context of her as being essentially a modern serial killer. Not a modern serial killer, but a serial killer that was hiding in plain sight. So many, many children vanished or were killed while they were in her care. And so this is really written from the viewpoint of the kids that went through that experience. And it was a really good read. It was fast-paced, but it was crushing. Crush your soul. The next 3 books that I talked about in my last vlog about 5 stars, so I'm going to try and keep it quick here. Number 18 is A Man Called Ove. This is probably literary fiction, so we've now hit mystery, thriller, historical fiction, and like literary fiction, I guess, or general fiction. A Man Called Ove by Fredrick Backman. So this follows an older gentleman. His name is Ove, and his wife has died. He loved her. His wife was his whole life. And now that she's gone, he has essentially decided that he doesn't want to go on anymore. He's going to take his own life. But every time he contemplates this, every time he comes up with a plan, every time he tries to do something, something happens that prevents him from going through with it. And really, I think it kind of boils down to he has just this really distinct feeling of right and wrong, the way things should be done. And he sees his neighbors getting into various hijinks, many of which are just not very serious, but some are. And he can't just let it go. He sees these problems that need to be fixed, and he can't just turn a blind eye. So he really kind of finds that he's still really needed in this community. So after you get your heart broken by When We Were Yours, or Before We Were Yours, you can come over here and read A Man Called Ove, and it'll heal your heart a little bit. Okay, next up is The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owens. So this is, you know, the 4 books that I talked about earlier that were all part of that Dragon Smut series. This is the same author. So this is a fantasy romantasy book. I've seen it described as Percy Jackson meets The Hunger Games for adults. So this is a world where the gods of old, think Hades, think Zeus, all of that, are alive and well. I can't tell you, are these Greek, Roman? I don't know. I should know. Once upon a time, I knew. I don't know anymore. They're alive and well, and they, you know, are kind of just living above us and tinkering with human life as they see fit. Every so many years, they hold what I'm going to call essentially a Hunger Games type event. It's not quite as violent, I should say, as the Hunger Games. It's more of a, think like Harry Potter in book 4, where he's trying to get through the maze. You know, you have to solve puzzles to survive. But every so many years, they hold this event where they're going to decide whoever wins, whichever god wins, is going to be the king of the gods for the next however many years. But the gods themselves don't directly compete. They bring in a human delegate. So this follows Hades as the god that we're rooting for, and his human delegate to try and become the king. So it's very clear when they enter this that not everybody is going to survive, and they don't. Not everybody does. So I loved this book, though. It was really good. And also, look how beautiful. Look how beautiful this book is. So I have the physical copy. So I read this on Kindle Unlimited. I loved the book. Normally, I am not a shelf trophy person. Look how pretty. Look how pretty this book is. It's so pretty. So I had to, if I didn't also love the book, I wouldn't have bought it as a shelf trophy, but I did. So here it is. Okay. All right. And so that's fantasy. So we've got thrillers, historical fiction, general fiction, fantasy, and now romance just for the summer by Abby Jimenez, and my third Emma as our main character here. So I read this book in about 4 hours on my way to my cruise. So I started reading it in the airport, read it on my flight, and then we sat on the tarmac for like an hour in Florida. And yeah, it was great. I got to read my whole book, so that worked out. So this follows Emma, who is a traveling nurse. So she takes contracts for a couple of months in different areas, and she meets a man named Justin, and she makes it very clear to him, I'm just here for the summer, and I'm going to be moving on. But they decide to go ahead and start a romance anyway. So something that I love about Abby Jimenez's books is kind of like what I was talking about with Katherine Center earlier, where she's really funny, but she writes characters who have real problems, like serious problems you don't want to have. She actually, in this book, put a bunch of trigger warnings even in the front of them, because some of these problems are yikes. But she writes these characters with real problems, but there's always a lot of humor in her books too, which I really, really enjoy. I love her characters. I love her stories. I have and will continue to read everything that Abby Jimenez puts out there. Okay, so that's it. I think we covered our bases, guys. All right, that was all of September. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of those and what you're reading now. Please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, take care and be safe. Bye.